The silver pendant hit the marble floor with a soft clang. Everyone at the table turned. Amara Blake froze, tray trembling in her hands. A tall woman at the corner table, impeccably dressed, calm but sharp-eyed, bent forward and picked up the pendant. For a moment their eyes met. The woman examined it carefully. A small silver locket, heart-shaped, with a faint engraving on the back. "To my little star." "Where did you get this?" she asked softly. Amara hesitated, unsure if she'd done something wrong. "It was mine since I was a baby. They said I was found with it." The restaurant had gone silent. The woman's hand shook. "Found?" she whispered. "Where?" "In a hospital in East London. They said I was abandoned there." A sudden stillness filled the air, like time holding its breath. The woman's name was Eleanor Whitmore, founder of Whitmore Skincare, one of the most respected names in London's cosmetics industry. A woman used to control. But right now her voice cracked. She turned the pendant over again, disbelief widening her eyes. "This belonged to my daughter, Caroline," she murmured. "She died 27 years ago, the day her baby disappeared." Amara felt her knees weaken. The restaurant manager hurried over, whispering, "Is everything all right, ma'am?" Eleanor barely heard him. She looked up at Amara again, like seeing a ghost she wasn't ready for. "I need to talk to you," she said, privately. Minutes later, they sat by the window overlooking the Thames. The city lights flickered off the water, reflecting two faces that didn't yet know how deeply they were connected. Eleanor's voice was calm, almost investigative. "I had a daughter, Caroline. She died giving birth. The nurse told me the baby didn't make it. But something never felt right." Amara's breath quickened. "I don't understand. You think I'm—" "I don't know," Eleanor interrupted. "But that locket, it was custom-made. Only one exists." The moment hung heavy between them. Eleanor slid a business card across the table. "Come to my office tomorrow morning. We'll find out the truth." Amara nodded, still in shock. As Eleanor left, Amara sat there, gripping the necklace. Heart pounding, mind spinning. Could this powerful stranger really be connected to her past? The next morning, Amara stood outside the Whitmore Skincare headquarters, tall glass towers glinting in the sunlight. People in suits rushed by. She felt out of place in her plain jacket. Inside, Eleanor waited, emotion hidden beneath her usual authority. A quiet voice broke the tension. "Ms. Whitmore, Dr. Hannah Patel is here." Dr. Patel, a geneticist and Eleanor's longtime friend, smiled kindly at Amara. "We can confirm the truth through DNA testing," she explained. "It'll take a few days." Eleanor nodded, her tone almost maternal now. "Whatever happens, you deserve answers." That night, Amara couldn't sleep. The necklace lay on her desk, glinting under the lamplight. She whispered, "Who am I really?" Memories flooded back. Moving through foster homes, being told she was lucky to be alive. The loneliness of never knowing her roots. Her phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. "You remind me of her already." Tears welled up. She didn't know whether to feel hope or fear. 3 days later, the call came. Dr. Patel's voice was steady. "Amara, the test is positive. You're Eleanor's biological granddaughter." Amara felt her chest tighten. She didn't speak for several seconds. Across the city, Eleanor listened in silence, tears rolling down her face. Decades of guilt, loss, and unanswered questions had led to this moment. She whispered, "My Caroline. She has a daughter." When they met again, there were no cameras, no headlines. Just two women staring at each other, unsure how to bridge 27 stolen years. Eleanor's hands trembled as she said, "I thought I'd lost you forever." Amara wiped her tears. "I thought I never had anyone to lose." They embraced quietly. For a brief moment, the world outside disappeared. Later that week, Eleanor made a decision. She wanted to know why her grandchild had been declared dead all those years ago. The investigation began. She contacted private investigators, demanded hospital records, and reopened old archives long buried. The hospital administration hesitated, but money and influence opened doors. Within days, a name surfaced: Nigel Crane, Eleanor's late husband's business partner. The man who took over key operations after Caroline's death. He'd been present at the hospital that night. She stared at the old file, fingers trembling. "He was there," she whispered. "Why?" And as the truth began to surface, the story turned darker than either of them imagined. If this moment gripped you, subscribe and stay till the end, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Eleanor was about to uncover the kind of betrayal that destroys families and empires. The rain came down hard over London the next morning. Inside her office, Eleanor stared at a decades-old photograph, her daughter Caroline smiling in a hospital gown, holding a newborn. No one else had ever seen that picture. It was taken minutes before everything changed. Amara walked in, carrying 2 coffees. "I didn't know where to start," she said quietly. "But I looked up that hospital. Closed 10 years ago." Eleanor nodded. "We're reopening its records." She pressed a button on her desk phone. "Send Mr. Crane, Indiana." The door opened slowly. Nigel Crane, silver-haired, polished, the face of old power. "Eleanor," he greeted. "You wanted to see me?" She gestured for him to sit. "Do you remember the night Caroline died?" A flicker crossed his face. "Of course I do. It was tragic." She leaned forward. "Then you'll remember the nurse, Robert Hayes." Nigel's jaw tightened. "What about him?" Eleanor placed a file on the table. "He disappeared right after Caroline's funeral, along with the infant death certificate, and signed." Nigel's eyes darted briefly toward Amara, who stood silently by the window. "She looks familiar," he muttered. "She should," Eleanor replied coldly. "She's Caroline's daughter." Nigel froze. The color drained from his face. "That's impossible." DNA confirmed it. For the first time in her life, Eleanor saw fear in his expression. Not grief, fear. That evening, Amara sat alone by the river, replaying the meeting. Her world had shifted too quickly. 1 week she was invisible. Now she was the lost heiress of a billion-pound empire. But beneath that shock was something heavier: betrayal. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Her hands shook. She showed it to Eleanor. Eleanor's response was calm but icy. "He's scared, which means we're close." The next morning, Eleanor met with Dr. Patel in a private lab. "I need you to verify one more thing," she said. "These hospital records. Look at the signatures." Dr. Patel compared 2 documents under UV light. Different handwriting. Someone forged the infant death record. Eleanor closed her eyes, fury and sorrow colliding inside her. "Find out who authorized it," she whispered. 2 days later, they got a name: Nigel Crane. He had bribed nurse Robert Hayes to falsify the death and smuggle the baby out. Why? Because Eleanor's husband had intended to leave the company shares to his newborn grandchild, securing her legacy. With the child gone, those shares defaulted to Nigel. It wasn't tragedy. It was theft disguised as fate. That night, Amara confronted Eleanor. "You mean he took me away? To steal a company?" Eleanor nodded slowly. "And he killed your mother's legacy with it." Amara's voice trembled. "Then we make him pay." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "We don't destroy. We expose." She reached for Amara's hand. "Promise me, no matter what, we stay visible. The truth needs witnesses." The next scene unfolded like a slow-motion storm. Eleanor walked into the shareholders' meeting flanked by Amara and her legal team. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. "Nigel Crane has been with us for 30 years, one board member said nervously. "What is this about?" Eleanor placed a folder on the table. "Proof," she said, "that he orchestrated the disappearance of my granddaughter and forged my daughter's medical records." Gasps rippled across the room. Nigel tried to laugh it off. "That's absurd. The woman you're protecting could be anyone." Eleanor turned toward Amara. "Show them." Amara opened her locket. Inside, a faded photo of Caroline holding her as an infant. The same photo Eleanor had kept hidden all these years. Reporters raised their cameras again, flashes bursting like lightning. Nigel slammed the table. "This is madness." Eleanor's voice cut through the noise. "Madness is stealing a child and building an empire on lies." Security escorted him out as the board voted to suspend him indefinitely pending investigation. Later that night, Eleanor and Amara sat in her penthouse, the city lights shimmering below. Amara whispered, "Is it over?" Eleanor shook her head.
No.
"The police still need evidence of the money trail." Amara's phone buzzed again. Another message. "You think you've won? Check your car." They rushed downstairs. Amara's small hatchback was gone. Minutes later, police sirens wailed in the distance. The car had been found burned near a construction site. It wasn't just corporate revenge anymore. It was personal. Eleanor tightened her coat and looked out the window. "He's desperate." Amara swallowed hard. "What do? "We keep moving," Eleanor said. "We bring the truth to light." She turned to the camera crew filming their upcoming documentary for the Foundation launch. "This story isn't about me," she said firmly. "It's about every child who vanished without a trace." Amara looked at her, realizing for the first time the weight of the legacy she was inheriting. "If you're watching this far," the narrator's tone softens, "hit the like button if you believe truth always finds its way. Because what comes next will test their courage and their lives." Days later, police arrested Robert Hayes in Manchester after decades in hiding. He confessed. He'd been paid by Nigel Crane to declare the baby dead and hand her to an anonymous foster intermediary. The goal was simple: erase the bloodline, secure the inheritance. Eleanor listened to the recorded confession, silent. Amara turned away, tears streaming. "He sold me like a secret." Eleanor's hand rested on her shoulder. "But you're free now, and so is the truth." Yet even freedom had a price. The media frenzy erupted. Reporters camped outside Amara's small apartment, calling her the lost Whitmore heiress. Every headline used her tragedy as a spectacle. She hid from cameras for days until Eleanor visited and said gently, "You can disappear, or you can define the story yourself." Amara looked up. "How?" "By speaking. By fighting for others who can't." That night, she agreed to appear publicly for the first time on record in front of millions. As the cameras rolled, Amara spoke carefully but with quiet strength. "I was taken from my mother the day I was born, but I survived because strangers cared. The system isn't broken, it's forgotten, and we can change that." The clip went viral overnight. Comments flooded in. "Her courage gives me hope. Justice finally served." But beneath the praise, someone else was watching. The man who had started it all, now cornered, desperate, and ready to make one final move. Nigel Crane wasn't the kind of man to lose quietly. 2 weeks after his suspension, a headline appeared in the London Ledger. "Whitmore heiress exposed. DNA test may be faked." The article claimed Eleanor had staged the entire story to win public sympathy and distract from corporate fraud. Amara stared at the newspaper, stunned. "He's turning the truth against us." Eleanor's response was cold and steady. "He's desperate, and desperate men make mistakes." Still, the damage was immediate. Stocks dropped. Investors panicked. Online trolls accused Amara of being a scammer from the foster system. For the first time, she felt the sting of fame without protection. She turned off her phone and whispered, "Maybe I shouldn't have come forward." Eleanor looked at her gently. "He wants you silent. That's why you can't stop now." That night, the two women sat with Dr. Hannah Patel in a quiet cafe near South Bank. Rain tapped against the windows as Hannah opened a laptop. "I found something," she said. "Nigel's financial records show secret transfers to a clinic in Birmingham, dated a month after Caroline's death." Eleanor frowned. "What kind of clinic?" "A private maternity wing. Shut down years ago. The same clinic that handled high-profile adoptions under the table." Amara leaned forward. "You think he sold me?" "Not sold," Hannah replied carefully. "Hidden. For leverage. If anything ever went wrong, He could discover the child and rewrite history. Eleanor's face went pale. That monster kept her disappearance as insurance. Later that night, Eleanor sat alone in her study, the city dark outside her window. Her phone rang, a private number. "Hello." A voice she hadn't heard in years answered. "Still playing detective, are we?" It was Nigel. She didn't speak. He continued, calm but venomous. "You think parading that girl around will bring back your daughter? You're destroying everything you built." "You already destroyed it," she said. "Now I'm cleaning up your mess." He laughed softly. "You're making a mistake, Eleanor. Some truths don't belong in daylight. Then daylight is exactly where they're going." The line went dead. The next morning, Amara's apartment door was found ajar. Inside, her things were untouched, except for a photo frame shattered on the floor. Eleanor's hands trembled as she received the call from police. "We think someone broke in," the officer said. "Nothing taken, just intimidation." Eleanor drove straight to Amara's flat. "Pack your things," she ordered. "You're coming with me." As they left, a dark car idled across the street, engine running. The driver watched them go. Inside Whitmore Tower, Eleanor gathered her executive team. Her voice echoed across the boardroom. "From this moment, every record, every communication goes through my office. No leaks, no fear." Behind the glass, Amara watched, realizing her grandmother wasn't just powerful. She was unbreakable. Days later, the police issued an arrest warrant for Nigel Crane, citing conspiracy, fraud, and endangerment. But he'd vanished. Reporters called it the Whitmore disappearance. Whispers spread he'd fled the country. Eleanor refused to believe it. "He's here. He wants a show." She was right. 3 nights later, she received a message from an unknown number. It was a video. Eleanor opened it, and her heart stopped. Amara, blindfolded, sitting in an abandoned warehouse, her voice trembling. A man's voice off camera. "You wanted the truth, Ms. Whitmore. Come alone if you want to see her again." The screen went black. Eleanor's breath quickened. For the first time, fear overtook fury. She called Dr. Patel. "Trace the signal. Now." "Within minutes," Hannah replied. "It's coming from the old Docklands in Greenwich." Eleanor didn't call the police. She grabbed her coat, her driver's keys, and left. The warehouse stood silent, half buried in fog. Eleanor stepped inside, flashlight in hand. "Amara!" Her voice echoed through the emptiness. Then, a silhouette emerged. Nigel Crane, calm, smirking, holding the same silver locket that had started it all. "You should have stayed quiet, Eleanor." She took a step forward. "Where is she?" He motioned toward the shadows. Amara sat tied to a chair, frightened but alive. Eleanor's voice was ice. "Let her go." Nigel laughed softly. "After all these years, you still think you control the story." "This isn't a story," she said. "It's evidence." She pointed to a small camera light blinking on her lapel. Nigel's eyes widened. "You're recording this?" "Every word." He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. The flashlight fell, rolling across the floor. Eleanor struggled, shouting, "Run, Amara!" Amara kicked the chair backward, breaking one of the legs. The noise startled him just long enough for Eleanor to pull away. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Nigel looked toward the door, realization dawning too late. "You called them?" Eleanor's voice was calm now. "No." The camera did. Dr. Patel had been tracking the location the entire time. Officers stormed in, pulling Nigel to the ground. As he was dragged away, he shouted, "You think this ends with me? The world doesn't care about your truth." Eleanor didn't answer. She just looked at Amara and whispered, "But we do." Hours later, at the police station, Amara sat wrapped in a blanket. Eleanor brought her tea. "I thought I was going to die," Amara whispered. Eleanor smiled faintly. "You were never going to die. Not while I'm alive." They both laughed through tears, exhaustion replacing fear. By morning, the news spread everywhere. "Whitmore scandal ends in arrest. Heir reunited with family after 27 years. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Justice for Amara and hashtag Whitmore Truth. People from around the world commented, survivors, foster kids, mothers, daughters. Eleanor turned off the TV and looked at her granddaughter. Now, she said, we start rebuilding. If you're still here watching, the narrator's tone lowers, intimate and hopeful. Make sure you subscribe because their story doesn't end here. What they build next will change lives forever. 3 months later, spring sunlight washed over the London skyline. The story of Eleanor Whitmore and her long-lost granddaughter had faded from the front pages, but not from people's hearts. Eleanor sat in her office, her desk now cleared of old files and sealed boxes. Across from her, Amara arranged framed photos on the wall. One of Caroline, smiling. She'd be 47 this year, Eleanor said softly. Amara nodded. I wish I could have met her. Eleanor's eyes glistened. You've met her every day since we found you. You have her voice, her courage, and her stubbornness. They laughed, the kind of laughter that comes only after surviving storms together. At a press conference later that week, cameras clicked as Eleanor stepped up to the microphone. Good morning. For years, I built an empire that changed faces on the outside, she began. But my greatest work has been rediscovering what changes us on the inside: truth, forgiveness, and the will to protect others. She turned to Amara, standing beside her. Today, we announced the Caroline Foundation, dedicated to protecting children in foster care, reforming adoption systems, and ensuring no family is ever torn apart in silence again. Applause filled the room. Some journalists wiped away tears. Amara took the podium next. I grew up believing I was no one, she said. Now I know identity isn't about where you came from. It's about what you do with your story. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from strength. Every child deserves to be seen, to be fought for, to be loved. For a moment, even the cameras stopped clicking. Later that evening, the two women walked by the Thames again, the same spot where their story began. The water shimmered under the soft glow of streetlights. Eleanor broke the silence. You know, when I first saw that necklace fall, I thought it was just coincidence. But now I think it was grace. Amara smiled faintly. Maybe it was both. They stood quietly for a while. Then Amara said, Do you ever think about what might have happened if we hadn't met that night? Eleanor nodded. All the time. But the truth finds its way, Amara. Even when we don't look for it. Weeks turned into months. The foundation grew rapidly, funded by public donations, endorsed by lawmakers, and supported by families who had once lost faith in the system. Children who had been separated were reunited. Hospital protocols were reformed. Amara's story became a beacon of hope. She appeared on news programs, standing beside other survivors. Her calm, grounded voice carried a message stronger than any headline. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. One afternoon, Eleanor visited a small community shelter sponsored by the foundation. Dozens of children ran around, laughing. Amara was there, kneeling beside a little girl drawing hearts on paper. Eleanor watched quietly from the doorway. The girl turned and asked, Miss Amara, will you be my family? Amara smiled gently. You already are. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears again. Not of grief this time, but of peace. That night, as the city lights flickered beyond their windows, Eleanor recorded a short message for the Foundation's official video. Her tone was warm, steady, and human. I once believed power was about control, she said. Now I know true power is about compassion. It's about using what you have to rebuild what was broken. She looked into the camera. If this story touched you, don't just watch, act. There's a child somewhere tonight waiting to be found, waiting to be loved. Be part of their light. The video went live on YouTube the next morning. Within hours, it spread across social media, millions of views, thousands of comments. People around the world wrote their own stories under the hashtag #CarolineLivesOn. One comment stood out. I watched this with my mother. We haven't spoken in years. Tonight we talked again. Eleanor read it aloud, smiling. That's the power of truth, Amara. It heals what lies break. Amara nodded, whispering, and it all started with a necklace. Eleanor looked at the pendant around Amara's neck. The same silver heart that had survived 27 years of loss, lies, and fate. Never take it off, she said. I won't, Amara replied. It's more than jewelry now. It's our reminder. Pain can begin a story, but love decides how it ends. If you made it this far, the narrator's voice softens, full of warmth and reflection. Make sure you subscribe for more stories like this. Real stories that remind us that truth, love, and courage still exist. And if this story moved you, leave a comment below. Tell someone you forgive them, or tell them you're still searching. Because every truth, no matter how small, deserves to be found. Subscribe, like, share to inspire change.